Good afternoon, folks, and thank you so much for joining us today for this information session about the Nonprofit Evolution Lab, a better beginning for your nonprofit. Today, we will walk through this new program from IntegralOrg, the enrollment process, and any questions that you may have. My name is Sandeep, and I am the Manager of Education here at IntegralOrg. I oversee our education opportunities like the Nonprofit Evolution Lab. Our priority is to continue bringing education to Alberta nonprofits and charities in an accessible and current manner. Our hope is that we take the administrative burden of finding the right information off your plate so that you can focus on your vision and mission. Every year, we walk alongside hundreds of nonprofit organizations, and there remains an ongoing need for consolidated information and accessible coaching opportunities for nonprofit initiatives, especially those that are early in the life cycle. The lab has been designed to bridge this gap. As always, we'll always have a Q&A period at the end dedicated for questions, but please submit your questions along the way, and we'll do our best to address them. If there is anything that is more specific to you or your organization's needs, you can always give us a call and we'll be happy to chat with you personally. I'll offer some contact details for myself at the end of today's conversation. We will begin today's session with a land acknowledgement. We would like to acknowledge that IntegralOrg is based out of Mohkinstsis, which is the Blackfoot name for elbow. This refers to the confluence of Elbow and Bow rivers that run through Treaty 7 territory. Mohkinstsis is situated in the traditional territory of the Blackfoot Confederacy, which includes the Siksika, Piikani, Kainai, as well as the Stoney Nakoda First Nations, consisting of the Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Goodstoney First Nations. Mohkinstsis is also home to the Tsuut'ina First Nation and the Métis Nation of Alberta, District 5 and 6. At IntegralOrg, our team recognizes the existing tension between the legal and governance structures that we work within and efforts towards truth and reconciliation. We accept our responsibility to work towards reconciling this tension, and we recognize that we all have a connection and responsibility to the lands that host our lives, our communities, and our work. With that, I would like to introduce my co-host, Mike Grogan. Mike is the president and CEO of IntegralOrg, and he has worked in the nonprofit sector for over 30 years. He's recognized for his ability to inspire nonprofit organizations to tackle complex issues and create sustainable solutions. And he's passionate about helping organizations understand the ever-evolving nonprofit landscape and working with teams to build their capacity. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Sandeep. Thanks for that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and thank you all. Very glad you took time out of your very busy days to spend a few minutes with us. And we take that very seriously at IntegralOrg. Our job as a nonprofit and charity is to help you do whatever it is you do. And so we're really excited to sort of think about bringing forward a new way of working for us. And I'll walk through what that means and how this kind of shifts what our traditional model of supporting nonprofits have been. But this is our vision, that charities, nonprofits have the knowledge to thrive, flourish, and achieve your purposes. So IntegralOrg is here to walk alongside you in many ways. We're here to support you in your work. Sometimes that's for a minute or two in a conversation. Sometimes that's over the years as we walk with you through all kinds of ups and downs issues of being a nonprofit. So this piece of work, or this project, or this program, I guess, we're going to start talking about today, is a new way of us thinking about how to do our work. Traditionally, we do a number of things. We sort of do a lot of workshops. I know some of you folks have been to a number of our workshops, usually online, but more and more in person these days. And that's on any topic, from strategy to governance to legal issues, fundraising, all kinds of stuff like that. So we try to be relevant and make sure we're meeting the needs of where you can go to get free, open, accessible workshops. That's the core of our work. We also do lots of one-on-one consultations, so sitting down and just booking a time with myself or Chelsea or a lawyer, Yvonne, just to walk through any issue you might have. Again, free services to wrestle with things for a half hour, an hour or so. We can do that multiple times too. And then we do fee-for-service projects, which is by any other name is consulting work, where you may ask us to incorporate a nonprofit, register your charity, to write a strat plan for you, to work with your board, to do a merger, all those kind of things. But what we, I think, have realized over the last few years is that there's a big gap between doing a workshop and perhaps a one-on-one consultation and a project. And it doesn't matter what we see that set the fees for our projects at, they can be, we try to keep them below market. But that can be a pretty big gap for some folks. So this is a new way of not doing things for you, it's doing things with you. And this fits our charitable purposes to train and coach boards and staff of nonprofits and charities. Today, we're going to talk a bit about the Evolution Lab, just to sort of walk through some of those pieces. Those words are important to us. That it's not just a neat title. Both of those words mean a lot to us. Who is it for, what you get, and then how the whole thing works. So lots of time to sort of ask questions at the end. I don't think it's going to take us certainly an hour here. I think probably out of here in 45 minutes or so. Unless you got lots of questions, then we're happy to stick around. And again, this is the beginning of a conversation. For those of you who worked with us in different ways, you know that one of the quotes that we use quite often is that all change begins in conversation. And it is our hope that this is a conversation. This is not a program out there that you can sort of choose to come and go at. This is a conversation relationship that we do want to enter into with you. So I want you to just maybe in the chat, if you can, just give me some idea of, you know, what are the things, what's one thing that your nonprofit is struggling with? Just to sort of think about your work, wherever you're at. I know some of you are just starting out, some of you have quite a nonprofit yet. Some have been around for a while, some have been around for a long time. But tell me, what are the things that you are struggling? Put that into the chat and let's just see what might pop up here and if we can make some sort of connection to what we're doing here. One thing you are struggling with into the chat, give me something to work with. Maybe they're really long, and that's why it's taking revenue. Oh, come on, really? Yeah, revenue. It's going to be a money one. There'll be lots of values-driven accountability mechanisms. That's really interesting. Sustainability. Yeah, could well be another code for revenue in some ways, but sustainability can go a lot of different ways. All the realms of work, the small nonprofit leader. Yeah, that's the thing. That's an interesting. Thank you, Corinne. Is just that you got to be all things to all people. So if you're a leader of an organization or anybody in an organization, sometimes the expectations of what you need to do from tech, facilities, funding, you know, plus sort of keeping the door open and all that kind of good stuff. Marketing, revenue, clearly define the problem. What's an interesting one? Fully actualizing our why. Holy smoke, good one, Derek. Charitable status and use of agents. Oh, that's an interesting one too. Lots of changing that way, and that could be one for a legal clinic. Secret ballots of election. Well, that's a little into the weeds, but I think it's a fantastic conversation to have. Lots of needs. If there's one thing that keep going, holy, I like alternative models of governance too. I'd like to work on that one. This is, you recognize there's a lot of needs out there, and they don't end. It doesn't matter if you're starting out in this journey or you've been around for 50 or 100 years. The needs are endless in many ways. And that's okay. I mean, it takes some effort to do the work we're going to do. If we're going to change community, there's a price to be paid. But if there's a way, what we're hoping to find is a way to support you in that journey. That can happen a whole bunch of ways. And the reason we sort of built this program is, yeah, we have a range of offerings, but we want to find a way to make it more accessible, to make it more based on you and working alongside you, not doing things for you. And we know that a strong start is critical to health and sustainability. And you can use the word start fairly liberally here. You know, you may be around forever and you're still in that startup phase. IntegralOrg's is 6 years old. I think we're still in the startup phase of this organization. So, I mean, the things you might be wrestling with might change along the way. But it's important to not just start well, but to continue to invest in your own health. And that's a hard thing to do sometimes. It's hard to take the time to do that. It's hard to find the resources to do that. It's hard to find people who are companions in that journey sometimes. And one of the things that you get from some of the idea of leading a nonprofit is pretty lonely out there sometimes. So the idea that there's somebody or a group of folks who have hopefully some expertise and some wisdom can come alongside you and say, we are here to walk at least a part of that journey with you. So starting well and continue to invest in your nonprofit is important for any nonprofit. Brand new, starting up today, been around for 100 years. That is a fundamental fact of being sustainable. You know, we've taken a lot of the stuff that's out there, and this is our job, is to go and look for materials, the materials that are relevant to you. So current, relevant, informational, educational materials, so you don't have to go find them. One of the I think the joys and maybe challenges of the information age we live within is you can Google something or co-pilot something or sort of AI it and find some information, but you don't necessarily know what's right. You don't know that it's appropriate to you. IntegralOrg is a nonprofit and charity like you. We are an approved legal service provider, so we have a standard of care information that we need to adhere to. But also, we're pretty clear about vetting information that's made in Alberta for a nonprofit. You can look at governance stuff and you never quite know sometimes where it's coming from. If you're getting stuff from other jurisdictions, there may be some value to that, but it may not be appropriate for you. So we do quite a bit of work of saying, is this current? Is it relevant? Is it compliant with where you need to be as a nonprofit? Accessibility and affordability, that's probably the big one for all of us. I mean, it's how do you find people and how can you make it accessible? So this is a way of trying to increase our accessibility. And it's a model, lets you come and go as you please, lets you join wherever you are in your journey. If you're starting out, there's some stuff for you, been around for 5 years, you want to work on planning or governance or fundraising, wherever it might be. There's room for you in this one as well. So this is not a program to sort of join into and you've got to follow our rules. It is very responsive. It's accessibility in a number of ways. Part of that's financial, but certainly part of it is how the program is structured so that you can do this on your terms and on your time in the way that means a lot to you. And then it does fit our model of coaching. You know, it's easy to do workshops sometimes to sort of tell you this is an answer to something, and there's value to that. There's some good information there. But to coach somebody through something, to coach an organization through something, that's what we're leaning into. That is part of our mandate, and this is, I think, a more fulsome expression of that mandate. You get to decide where you want to work, how you want to work, the pace along the way. We'll walk alongside you and guide you. So it's not you got to show up at 2 o'clock on a Tuesday to do a workshop. This is very much your model. Because we know that, especially when you're starting out sometimes, you know, the times you need to gather are tougher. You got people who are working other jobs perhaps, so evenings, nights, weekends. You kind of cram this stuff into where you can. So it's not our job to make you fit our model. It's our job to kind of come alongside you wherever you are. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of it. It is, you know, this is who's this for? And I just want to point out 2 words missing. When we use the Evolution Lab, those words are really important to us. That all nonprofits evolve. We're not a static thing, and it seems like it's really apparent on the front end where you're starting out. Of course, moving from stage to stage, but even as you're around for a while, you're going to go from different, maybe not stages, but you're going to go more deep into certain areas. So there's an evolutionary component to any nonprofit, and this is a lab. This is where you come and try things. This is not where you sort of do it and get the answer. I think you will. We do want to make it very practical and meet your needs. But we're still building this thing. So we didn't come with a fully polished sort of, here's the model, please fit into it. We're building this as we go, as we build this thing. And that giving you a space to try different things, to try ideas, to ask your questions. Some of the chat questions there were great. How do we look at alternative models of governance? Fantastic. Those would be great to wrestle with. How do we balance kind of the things you need to have, the Societies Act, or the Companies Act, where you're incorporated, and what you can really do in your nonprofit? That's a fantastic lab type question, and we hope to bring those to this process. So for a brand new idea in our organization, you're just thinking about starting up, I think there's some stuff there for you. You're new, you've already started up, maybe you're incorporated, or you're just getting that process going. I think we have some pieces for you. Maybe you're around, you've got the legal entity sort of established, you're thinking charitable status or governance, things like that. But even if you've been around for a while, whether you're small or not, use the word small, kind of however that might fit. But there's other ways of supporting you with this. So this is very much a pathway, but that pathway can sort of meander and vary based on your need. You're not having to sort of join from the beginning. You can sort of come in the middle and leave after a module. You can take some time off. It's super, super flexible. There it is. So this is a little pathway we sort of came up with this idea. As we say, we're building this as we go. And just picture that you can join any of these sort of modules. We will add more as we go. I think we got 5 set up right now. 5 or 6, I think we're ready to go. 5, I guess, right now. But you say you can, well, if you're just starting a nonprofit or thinking about starting a nonprofit, what should I do? Just to plan that out, that very, very beginning stage, to say who else is out there in this space. You know, what's my initial purpose and mission and funding model? A lot of folks will start a nonprofit and say, now I got to go figure out how to fund it. Fair enough. That's probably how we all do it. But maybe there's some conversations to have at the front end to how to incorporate or register. Incorporation being a sort of the nonprofit structure, sort of the DNA, the birth certificate of what you are. Registration to be a charity, you have to go through that process. So how do we coach you through that? You know, building a board. We spend a lot of time building boards, but how do we work with folks who are already around? And so build your board up, creating a plan, whether it's strategy or operational things. Sometimes they're shorter term, sometimes longer. then how do you build a sustainable organization, financing, people, all those kind of good things. So these are modules. They're not sort of, you don't necessarily go through all at once. You may go through things quite quickly. You may take 2 or 3 months to go through one. What we want to get when we do these things is to have you come up with a plan. So if we went into the board governance module, we would do some teaching perhaps. There's some online resources. There's all kinds of tools and tips and tricks. But you'll come out of that with a learning plan. For my organization, for my board, what do I need to invest in? And we will coach you through that. So there is educational materials. There are certainly resources out there. There's some coaching things. At the end of the day, we want to get you something that's very practical, that's very much based on your organization. So self-paced learning, big piece of this, learn as you want to go, learn as you want. So some folks like to rush through stuff. I think for most of these areas, those 5 that are up right now, they're not things you can rush through in a day or 2 or 2 or 3 days. There is a lot more depth to that. I think it does take a while to absorb things, and especially if you're working with a team and a group. And all nonprofit work, in some ways, involved is a collaborative activity, and collaborations are great and those kind of things, but they do take more time. They take time to sort of absorb things and get different voices to the table. That's where the richness comes from, but it does slow it down. So we sort of conceptualize these modules as 3 to 4 months, may go faster, may go longer. We're not too rigid on those kind of things, but you're going to work through it at your own pace in your own time. And we want to get to that organizational development plan. So whatever it is, in governance or in corporation or strategy, what it is, what is the module that sort of you're working on that gets you to that plan, that you're clear about your priorities and your next steps? And then coaching. How do you receive some coaching from a subject matter expert to say, listen, we're working through this part of governance. I got this plan about my financing model. We set up a call and we talk you through it, and we just wrestle with your ideas. So again, we're not here to give you the answers. We're here to help you find some answers. And I think, is that it for me?
Yep.
Oh, good.
Thanks, Mike.
I'll be back. Okay.
So I will go over the investment for the nonprofit lab. So the lab is priced by module, and each module costs $150. After your initial consultation, you'll be able to determine which module aligns with your needs and interests. And like Mike mentioned, each module will come with up to 3 coaching calls with a subject matter expert. You'll have a 3 to 4 month period to access these coaching calls, but you'll have access to the learning materials for up to a year from the date of registration. So you can refer back to the learning material, revisit any concepts that you need a refresher on, and share these learnings with your team. Each module also includes access for up to 3 people from your organization or nonprofit group. So for that $150, 3 people from your group can participate in a given module. And we encourage full use of this so that everybody in your nonprofit group is on the same page. And when it comes to education and next steps, everyone is in alignment. Each module in the lab consists of various learning ways of learning, so modes of learning. You'll have the opportunity to watch videos, access downloadable PDFs and toolkits, participate in assessments, test your knowledge, go through and refer back to checklists, and ensure that you're making progress throughout each module. We'll demonstrate these features for you at the end of today's session, and so you can get kind of a feel for what that will look like. Before we move on to a module overview, I do want to note that accessible education is a priority for us. And so if the module fee poses a barrier, we're open to discussing that with you. Please don't let the financial component prevent you from reaching out to us. This is a conversation that we are always open to having. So that's kind of the overview of what your investment will look like. But again, do reach out to us if you have any questions or if that feels like a barrier. With that, we'll move into the module overview. So the lab offers several modules that are important in the early stages of nonprofit development. The exact modules that meet your needs and interests will be determined through the initial consultation call. You may not need every module, and it may be recommended that you work through modules over time instead of all at once. The 5 modules we've identified here are what we consider first steps. So this includes initial planning, where you'll reflect on your current capacity, consider external trends impacting your organization, and work out a plan of activities that will guide your next steps. incorporating a nonprofit. So this is the legal aspect of becoming a nonprofit organization. This module walks you through the process and ensures you understand the legal compliance aspect and your responsibilities. And this, as well as all the other modules, are guided by a subject matter expert that will be coaching you along the way. The board governance module will walk you through the roles and responsibilities of the board as a collective, but also the different roles a board of director could have. And this module focuses on establishing your first board and overcoming challenges of governance. Then we have fundraising. This module looks at the basics of fundraising, offering you practical tools, tactics, and strategies that will help you build capacity and sustainability of your nonprofit initiative. And finally, financial management. This is the basic financial responsibilities, controls, and policies that every nonprofit should have in place. As Mike mentioned, each module will include an organizational development plan where you'll be able to clarify next steps. And this includes those coaching calls, or will inform those coaching calls that you can then bring your questions and kind of next steps to. And your subject matter expert will help you kind of reflect on that and ensure that you are on track. So as the lab continues to develop, we'll make more modules available addressing other areas of nonprofit development, but these 5 are a strong starting point. Okay, so just a quick overview here of the enrollment process. The enrollment process for the lab is more about determining your needs and if the lab is right for you. And it starts with the inquiry form as the first step. So this is a chance for you to share more about you and your nonprofit initiative. And we will go through those details and set up a time for us to chat. So you'll submit the form, you'll receive some sort of confirmation that we've received the submission, and then we will set up a phone call or a video conversation to chat a little bit further. And at that time, if you're interested in proceeding, you will be able to preview the lab. And so this will include an introductory session on the introduction to the nonprofit sector, an introduction to the lab itself, and you'll also be able to preview the governance module. And so this is a chance for you to kind of look through the different learning materials and ways that the education materials are kind of set up. And it's also an opportunity for you to address any questions that you may have before you move ahead with enrolling in the lab. After the preview, you'll decide whether you would like to participate. And if you're interested, we'll move into the enrollment process. And this is more of the administrative pieces, including the payment and setting up your account. And from there, you will begin to work through your material. You'll complete your organizational development plan and meet with subject matter experts and make progress through the different modules and areas for nonprofit development. All right, so we'll take a second now, a couple of minutes, not a second actually, to look at the lab. And so you can kind of get an idea of what you can expect. I'm going to share my screen to a different video here, so give me a second.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jennifer, and I'm the Communications Manager at IntegralOrg. I'm just going to give you a quick tour of the Nonprofit Evolution Lab. Once you've gone through the intake process and we've assigned you an account, you'll have access to the home page of the lab. And that's where we are right now. As you scroll down, you'll be able to have a look by clicking here on Explore Our Courses, the various courses that are available in the lab. First, we'll have a look at this course, which is the Introduction to the Lab. You'll see there's a quick description of the main learning outcomes. And here's the breakdown of the learning activities. Another course that I'm just going to preview for you right now is the Nonprofit Board and Governance course. We'll click on that course card, and this is the home page for that course. You can see that there are learning outcomes and then the outline of the course with all of the different learning activities. We'll look at the course player right now, which is what you'll see when you're working through the course itself. This course starts with an introductory module that gives you an overview of the subject and explains how to ask questions, how to connect to community, and how to arrange a coaching session with a subject matter expert. Next, there's an introduction to governance with a video that you can watch and a quick assessment. After that, there's a section about how to establish your first board of directors with a video. In the next section, there is information about nonprofit board responsibilities, including the responsibilities of the board and of board members. There's a section about your organizational development plan, a section about roles, partnerships, and expectations on a board, a section with learning activities about the challenges of governance, and more. So that's just a quick overview of the Nonprofit Evolution Lab and of the learning system.
So that was a quick demonstration of the lab by Jennifer, our communications manager here. And so you can see that there's various different ways to engage learning. There's assessments, there's videos, there's checklists and downloadable PDFs. There's also a separate section there for your organizational development plan where you can take notes as you go. You'll be able to chat with other folks in your nonprofit group to go over those organizational development sections for each of you, bring that information together, and then proceed with a coaching call with a subject matter expert who can then give you feedback, identify any gaps, and ensure that you are on track in your learning and development. So the next step from today's conversation would be to poke around on our website and the webpage for the Nonprofit Evolution Lab to review any of the details that we've chatted about today. And then there will be a link for you to complete an inquiry form. So I'm going to drop that into the chat for you now. This is a link to the webpage, and then there's also a direct link to the inquiry form if you would like to jump there. And so, like I said, the inquiry form is really just an opportunity for you to share more about yourself and your organization and kind of identify some of the areas that you're interested in learning more about. And then we will review that and be in touch with you to talk a little bit further about whether the lab is the right fit for you. All right, so we'll move into questions now. Feel free to pop them into the chat here or raise your hand if you prefer. You can unmute yourself, whatever feels right.
While we're waiting for questions, I'll give you some different answers. Not even waiting for questions, that's how good we are. Just a couple things too I should point out here. One is that there's 5 modules there right now. This will evolve over time. There will be more. So, you know, oh, geez, are you doubting me? There we go. We'll add more modules. This very much is a work that we're developing as we go work with you. So some foundational ones, but maybe risk management, do other pieces as well. Sort of seeing where you want to go. So it's not this is the end product. This is very much the beginning days. Subject matter experts, I think, are built into our model here. So we do have legal counsel on staff. I tend to do a little bit of work here in planning and governance, so I could probably throw some things in there too as well. We're also shifting our model at IntegralOrg to bring in more high-skilled volunteers in areas like fundraising and perhaps legal and finance as well. So folks who aren't just sort of outsiders who may or may not have and understand the sector. I think we've worked with models before where you can find somebody who might be a brilliant accountant or a brilliant lawyer. If they don't know anything about the nonprofit sector, they're not that good. So part of our use of volunteers will be to train volunteers to make sure they understand the sector, to make sure they actually are meeting your needs. So they're not experts sort of giving you advice from on high, they really are coming alongside you. So again, that will evolve over time. So a lot of the sort of process questions will probably be handled in-house by staff. Expertise, we can bring in folks as we need it, depending on your needs. So yeah. I also want to mention too that, we're trying to keep this as cheap as we can, and sort of the fees really to get participation, and a few dollars in the bank, obviously, but this is heavily subsidized through Suncor Energy Foundation. So we're really grateful to them for their support of this, and the government of Alberta also has a bit of money in this one as well. So, other questions? Do we need to answer anything else before we?
We have something here from Ali. We are a national nonprofit that is headquartered in Alberta. Would we still be able to engage with this lab?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you're headquartered in Alberta, that helps us a lot. But our mandate is where it gets trickier sometimes if you're, say, you were incorporated in BC. Our understanding of the BC Societies Act is pretty limited and on. So it'd be hard to say that expert tag. If we call ourselves, I guess we do call ourselves expert media today, so why not? But the idea that there's some things that are kind of generic, more or less, like fundraising. Anybody can do that stuff. Not kidding. Sorry, Derek. The idea that, but fundraising principles sort of translate well from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. Governance, perhaps not so much, and especially that incorporation side of things, that gets a little trickier for us if you're working to incorporate outside Alberta, unless you're the Canada Not-for-Profit Corporations Act, which is a kind of one that we're sending more and more folks to these days. So absolutely, I think there's ways to do that, but that's a good conversation to have. Those are the exact kind of conversations, Ali, they'd like to have in that sort of first conversation with you. Say, does it fit? And so really it is, that conversation is about what are your needs and where can we best align our work with yours? Yeah. Okay, other questions? Oh, there's a bunch down there. That's why. Click this button, Mike. There we go. Yeah, I think that's an interesting one too, Derek. Yeah, that was the idea that, part of it is, we can sort of work alongside your organization, but, if there's 2 or 3 groups that are maybe roughly in the same kind of stage of life or wrestling with the same question, maybe bring you together for some chat online, or, just say, okay, I'm struggling with my board chair, that kind of stuff. Who knows? It could be that granular, but maybe it's just sort of sharing some learnings back and forth along the way. One of the things, it's not just lonely leading a nonprofit, sometimes it's lonely running a nonprofit. You don't get a chance to sort of bump into or see other nonprofits. We gathered some folks last week to do some leadership stuff, and to say, the opportunity is to share some questions, share some thoughts, to have other people joining the journey is a part of our work in this as well. So again, that will, if there's opportunities to do that, we can certainly put those in place. Maybe a few groups are working with sort of the basics to financial control. We do a joint workshop with all of you at one time, and then break that into sort of more granular coaching conversations as well. Yeah. You're welcome, Karen, anytime. Am I missing anything, Sandeep?
No, I think that's everything.
Oh,
yep.
Brilliant.
Great. All right.
Oh, you go. You go.
Okay. Yep. Well, I was just going to say thanks again, folks, for joining us today. Of course, if you have any lingering questions or something pops into your mind a little bit later, you can reach out to us at any time. My contact information is on the screen here, but I will also drop it in the chat for you now. You'll also receive an email directly from me with a recording of today's session and just some follow-up things. So you will have my email shared with you that way as well. And yeah, thanks again for joining us today and learning a little bit more about the lab with us today. As many of you know, IntegralOrg is a capacity builder and nonprofit ourselves, and our goal is to equip you with the knowledge that you need and the support that you need to do your best work. And so, as we've mentioned, we're here to walk alongside you in your nonprofit development journey, and we're here to help. So do not hesitate to reach out to us at all.
Thanks, folks. Hope to talk to you soon. Take care.